Hey, for Sunday, March 22nd through Sunday, May 31st, 2020, this is the Pro and the Con Show, and I'm your host, Michael James Ott. Well, been off for a couple months, doing a lot of different things, and a lot of things going on around the country. So big pandemic things going on, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time here. The short title of today's show is Travesty, and part of it will be dedicated to talking about the pandemic and Mr. Trump's response to it. But the other part is a much more recent focused event, which is the murder of George Floyd. And I could say killing of George Floyd, but that is that softens what actually happened. No, he was murdered by a police officer here in nearby Minneapolis, Minnesota. And thankfully, because of some of the technology, these portable cameras we have these days, the whole thing was captured on videos by multiple people, and of course an absolute tragedy. And there's right now the country is engulfed in a tremendous amount of rioting and things, and I'm not saying that the violence and the looting is appropriate, but certainly the anger and the frustration, and it's one of these things where with the pandemic, it's hard for a lot of us to try to aggressively go out there and support this. But honestly, all 340 million Americans, plus minus, we should all be just absolutely horrified with this, and it's an ongoing issue, and it's very similar to in the last year or two we had this Me Too, or maybe 3 years, this Me Too thing about sexual harassment and sexual assault, and how commonplace it was, and how it just cannot be accepted anymore. It has to be zero tolerance. Well, the same thing. Our police, somewhere along the way, a significant number of our policemen have gotten to a place where they feel like they're above the law, and especially when they're treating people, minorities, people of color. So it's an issue for me, but it's a 100-fold issue for people that aren't as fortunate I am, that I was born white skin. So I certainly will spend the rest of my life being very acutely aware of this and trying to do something about it. But anyway, let's talk about the pandemic and Mr. Trump's response to it first, because of this, the first reason why I wanted to do this show called Travesty. And in relation to the pandemic and to Mr. Trump, the travesty part of it is that he, of course, I don't know whether he's just an unbelievably, pathologic liar kind of person, or whether he truly has significant mental health issues where he actually believes that, by reconceiving history, he's actually changing it. But what really tears at me is he is talking about, so the coronavirus started coming and started spreading around the world. It was obvious that it was going to do that. Obvious that there were only 3 things that you could do. You could test and segregate people. You could come up with a cure, or you'd come up with a vaccine. Well, those last 2 were going to take forever. So all you could do, we knew how to test. We just had to roll out a lot more testing. And yes, that would have been a huge effort, but it would have been billions of dollars, instead of Mr. Trump, who basically said, it's going to go away. Forget about it. I remember famously there was 15 cases in the U.S. and he said they'd be gone in a couple of days, and then we'd be down to 0. And this response has been horrific, and the coordination here in this country on a national level has been horrific, and it all points to him because he basically just totally botched the thing and decided that by decree he could make a virus go away. And so now in retrospect, now he's rewriting history. So now he's sending tweets out and said, "Oh, I did all these things, early on in this pandemic, and he didn't do them." But he writes down that he did in a tweet, and it's wrong. It's not historically correct. And then what has happened? Well, his propaganda channel, the Fox News, they pick it up and they send this information out. They don't say that it's true or false. They just say this is what the president said. That's it. So they validate what he said because they send it out again without comment, inferring that they think it's true, when of course it's not. Or not. I mean, there's little bits of it, probably 10% true. But this is the travesty. This is the travesty. And the real travesty is that you and I, so I pay close attention to this, but I'm afraid there's many, many, many Americans that just don't. And I, speaking to friends and neighbors and things like that, there's so many of us that have shut down, that have decided that we're not going to participate. And this is one of the main reasons why I do the show, the Pro and Con Show. I'm begging you, please get involved. Please take the time to really ferret out the truth, the pro and the con, the good and the bad, the for and against. Because if you don't, you're not going to have that information, and you're not going to form the right opinions, the opinions that are in your best interests as citizens of this country. And then we're going to make awful mistakes like potentially re-electing Mr. Trump, for example. Okay, so that was travesty number one, the pandemic, and Mr. Trump's response to it, especially given his continuing attempts to rewrite history, to try to place him in a rewrite where he somehow is a hero in an act or in a play that he was the villain, which is what Mr. Trump is wont to do. But the rest of us, come on. The rest of us have to be aware of reality. Okay, the pro and the con, the good and the bad, the for and against. All right, let's switch to Mr. George Floyd. So I've already mentioned clearly, we people of color have suffered mightily. Okay, so a couple hundred years ago it was slavery, and for some decades, and then after the Civil War it was various race-related laws and stuff, segregation, all that. It was all intended to keep certain minorities suppressed, basically. And so they of course have had years and years and years of improper treatment, unfair treatment. And now what's happened over the last, I would say, 10 years, not that it hasn't been happening before, but over the last 10 years, it feels to me like, and my observation is that the police have become immune to the law themselves, that most police officers feel like they're immune to the law, especially when it comes in any regard to treating someone that they think may have committed a crime or something like that. So this whole thing of the arrest process and taking a potential criminal or someone that's a suspect into custody, they have been given huge leeway by jurors, basically. So the few of them that actually go to trial because they're actually charged with a crime, they are acquitted all the time by jurors, and the balance is okay, and everybody knows, and I know, you know, we all know that police officers, this is a very difficult job, and it's a very, very dangerous job because we live in America where there's almost a gun for every single person here. Maybe it's even more than that now, but there's lots and lots and lots of guns, which are extremely powerful, dangerous weapons, and the police have to deal with this every single day. So yes, it is a horrifically dangerous thing, and you know, I support them, of course, and I support that they're literally putting their lives on the line every day. But having said that, there's definitely a place, a line where they have a subject or a suspect under control. This person's handcuffed. Maybe they're in leg shackles. And yet the police will continue to physically smother these people, physically hurt them, basically, when they're in a position where the reality is they can't hurt the police in any significant way. I mean, so in the case of Mr. George Floyd, he's on the ground, he's shackled and handcuffed, and yeah, he can roll around on the ground, and I suppose if he rolled around, he might try to bite a police officer or something like this. But no, what happens is a career police officer, as it turns out, now we know more history, has a career of excessive force when dealing with suspects that he's arresting. A career of it. And so here he is, Mr. Floyd is on the ground, and there's some other officers, by the way. And Mr. Floyd is a relatively large man. I understand, but he's handcuffed behind his back, and he's on the ground. And so this police officer kills right there. He kills him. He murders him. He didn't shoot him with a gun. Instead, he put his full weight on his knee on George Floyd's neck, and he killed him. And I say, thankfully, and I've said in the past, we have to be very open and transparent about what the police do in this country. And every single police officer, boy, if I ever get in charge of anything, or if I'm ever able to influence anyone who is in charge of this country, every single police officer is going to wear a body cam that's recording constantly what they're doing, constantly. And, it's recording constantly, and if there's ever like a significant issue, then that portion of that recording is instantly retained and provided to the public so that we know exactly what happened. Because in the moment, in the street or back alley or a shop or whatever, it's one person on another, and the police officer, especially if he's disarmed a suspect and has him shackled and or handcuffed, he's in control and literally can do whatever he wants with that person, including kill them, torture them, break bones, whatever. And unless there's a video showing exactly what's happening, we'll never know. And we need to know. We need to know. We need to hold police officers. We need to hold all of us. We need to hold ourselves accountable to the fact that we need to do better for people that have a little bit different skin color, hair color, eye color, or whatever. Come on. We're better than this. We're better than this. And that person, whoever it is, that could have just easily been you or me. I mean, you see some person, you see them, and you say to yourself, well, I'm glad I'm not that person. Well, it could have been. It could have been. It's just happenstance that you aren't there in the handcuffs and the shackles. Just imagine yourself if your brain was instantly put in that body and their brain was put in your body. It easily could be. And it's totally, completely unfair. It's a travesty. All right, so that's for this period, and kind of now I'm going to be a regular guest on my own show. I'm going to actually start doing these shows again every day through November 3rd. And actually the next handful are just going to be about me. I don't know, the Supreme Court is supposed to, a little bit of a tangent here, the Supreme Court is supposed to decide whether the electors, the Electoral College, are independent or chained to the popular vote. And I'm not a legal scholar, but I'm pretty darn sure that the founders of the Constitution intended that they were free to vote in any way that they saw fit. And if they are indeed allowed to vote in any way they see fit, I'm going to continue. These videos are about me, because at some point, if I don't know what the circumstances might be, but if we have to have someone that people can trust to be president of the United States after, during this next election process, I'll be here. I volunteer to, and again, I don't want to do that. I don't want to be president of the United States, but by God, I want someone that cares about you and me in that office. So if it's not me, maybe there's somebody else out there. Somebody, but not Mr. Trump. Oh my God, no, not Mr. Trump, not again. And anyway, so the Electoral College, these videos would serve. Some people might say, okay, this is maybe a good guy, or they say, no, he isn't, don't want him. Okay, that's fine. But in any case, the next 6 shows are going to be snippets in decades of my life. I'm just shy of 60 years. And so 6 decades, little 10, 15-minute snippets of my lifetime. Okay, so for this very long period, Sunday, March 22nd through Sunday, March 31st, 2020, this has been the Pro and Con Show. I'm your host, Michael James Ott. Until the next show, bye for now.